Let's talk about a selection process, right? So what happens that, people will say all the time, what is it that triggers an audit, right? One thing that's happening right now, regardless of who you are, is just the fact that with the economy and the downturn with the pandemic, the software vendors are not meeting their numbers, and they're just going to they're just increasing the frequency of the audit. So right now, I would call that an external factor, that they're not making their numbers, and they're just auditing more people in order to grab revenue, right? But outside of a pandemic, these 6 things are the things that typically would potentially kick you into a selection process or put you on a radar, right? So there's a change in spend. You're spending less than you used to. You got a complex structure, and they start questioning whether you have a handle on how you're actually licensing things. You do frequent M&A. M&A usually, if you do an acquisition, it's probably pretty much guaranteed that sometime within the first year, you're going to have 2 or 3 different vendors knocking on your door. If you've got a highly customized and complex licensing agreement, that's a trigger. Obviously a decrease in spend that's not aligned to a reflection of the growth of the organization. And then I call IQ gathered by various team members. A lot of times these software vendors are in talking to a bunch of people, and they may hear things that are contradictory to the way things are licensing. Not always right. I one time had a team member sit in on a meeting where they said they were basically going to have an extra 10,000 PCs on the network. So they said they had, this number, and that person went back to the account team and said, "Oh, look, we found this out." And they said, "Well, you have these many PCs, and you're way under license with us." And it really just ended up being that they were in the middle of a massive refresh, but it took them 6 months to convince the vendor of that and things like that. So, if you want to try and avoid these things, is what you want to be doing is making sure that you're communicating with your vendor what's going on. So if you're going to decrease your spend, make sure they understand why you're decreasing your spend. They might not like it. They may try and fight against it, but as long as you're doing, within the rules itself, that they'll understand. So what I say is, try and communicate any of these sorts of things with your account team as frequently as possible. And then, also there's some things you can do, maybe try and negotiate some audit clauses in, maybe do self-assessments versus audits first. And then, making sure that you understand the big risk factors and that you have a handle on those.